The first question people ask me is, how can equine stress control therapy, something so simple, work so deeply? And I have to be honest, when I first did it on Victor, this is Victor, the first horse who ever received equine stress control therapy, I did a double take too. No, I did a triple take. I did what in psychological parlance is called, I apexed out. I couldn't believe what I was seeing until I did it on several horses, and 14 horses in a field study. 2 horses didn't work out. One moved and the other one had very severe brain damage, so I don't think anything could have helped that horse. It was electrocuted in a lightning storm. So how does it really work? It works by changing the waveform of the brains. When you have a nervous, anxious, or spooky human or horse, one part of the brain, the primitive brain, starts sending signals that the reasoning and logical brain can't override. So it basically creates a waveform that is stronger than the mitigating waveform. And what equine stress control therapy does, or EMDR in the human form, is it equalizes those waveforms. So part of the brain is saying, fly away, run, don't stay, don't play, I'm nervous and anxious, and this mitigating signal can't get through to this part. So as equine stress control therapy interrupts this waveform starts amplifying, and then what you get is a waveform that follows, and then eventually you get into a theta brainwave state, which is slow cycling and which is calming and which is much more contemplative and meditative, and so the reasoning and logical part of the brain can start working. Well, okay, fine, you say, horses don't have reason and logic. To the extent that they do, I beg to differ with you, because I see them making choices all the time. And the reason I know this is because equine stress control therapy allows them to stay and make those choices time and time again. Many trainers will tell you, you can't allow a horse to make a choice. They don't know how. So I ask you to experiment with this therapy and see for yourself. The reason that it works with a horse so quickly is that when they come to a therapy session, they don't drag their egoic baggage with them. If you're sent by your wife or your husband, or your children tell you you need therapy, or your employer says, if you're going to stay working here, you need to go see a shrink. Well, a horse doesn't have that imperative. He shows up, we make him feel good, he feels better, the stress goes away. What's he got to lose? His identity is not his fear. His identity comes from being a functioning member of the herd, someone who has a place in the hierarchy and knows how to maintain it or move up. A human being is afraid, hey, if my problems go, who will I be? They don't understand the clear space. The horse will go into the clear space. You don't even have to prompt it. It already knows how to go there because it does exactly that when it's out in the field, lazing in the sun, generating those theta brainwave states, standing around doing nothing. They're actually in a somatic state, which humans try to achieve through meditation. So as we can take them to that with equine stress control therapy, as we are presenting and removing their fear, their stressor, or creating an environment for them in which these anxieties come up, and seeing them through it without so much as displacing a hair on their head, I think we've got something. When you're using ESCT on your horse, a reminder is to use the best training that you have, the best training tools. And here's how those training tools integrate into equine stress control therapy. Number one is, we don't dumb a horse down by letting the pulsar run or by tapping it too much. The pulsar generally runs from 1.5 to 2 minutes, 1 to 2 minutes, not longer than that. When you're tapping, a 10-minute session with rest breaks in between is sufficient to get the horse into a soft mode. The same way that you wouldn't be doing the same training exercise with a horse over and over and over again until it checks out. So one is to respect the mental stamina and capacity of your horse and to honor that. The other training tool that we use that integrates with equine stress control therapy is approach and retreat with the stressor. If all you do is stress, 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 then that horse is going to break down. So what we do is we introduce the stressor, we apply the therapy, we take a little break, and then we do that all over again. There will come a time in that process when you will intuit, and the horse will show you with his body language, that now when I'm introducing the stressor, I don't have to pulse anymore because he's at a level where he can handle it. So then the second tool that we use is approach and retreat. The third tool is if there is a breakdown in the process, it's not a problem. Just as a breakdown in the training process isn't a problem if you take the horse back to where it felt good, repeat that process again, and then if you feel he can move on to a higher level of stress or a higher level of training, then you take him there. Or you leave him at that good point, finish with the therapy, take him for a little walk, and save the stress increase for the next session. One of the reasons I like to use the remote control pulser on a horse while I'm riding is that it allows me to use both hands and it gives me the freedom to turn the pulser off and on without interrupting the sequence that we're in. A lot of horses have issues, especially when they're younger and learning, with gait acceleration. When you ask them to increase speed, their energy automatically increases and you tend to have a ballistic missile underneath you instead of a horse that it's engaging its movement for you. So as I know I'm going to teach a horse to gait accelerate and I feel he's getting too fresh, I will turn the pulser on before I get to that point. You could almost call it as a psychological half-halting technique to tell the horse, hey, we're going to be doing something now, but I don't want you to get excited about it. And after about 3 or 4 tries, the horse gets it. The other reason that I like to use the remote control pulser is if I'm teaching a horse something new and the horse is resisting the newness of it and is not understanding it, and I sense this in advance because I know the horse, I will use the pulser on the horse as I'm warming him up. I will pulse him periodically at the walk, at the trot, so that when we go into our training exercise, this horse is already soft and much less resistant. The other reason that I like to use the remote control pulser is that if I'm engaged in something that's a little bit complicated with a horse, he's learning something new, I don't want to stop the process by asking him to turn his head around and turn the pulser off and on his head stall. I can just keep going, and if I don't feel I need the pulser anymore, I can just take it right out of my pocket and turn it off or on. While the pulser is a therapeutic tool, you don't need to use it just in therapy, like a good massage or a good rub down or a set of treats. You can use the pulsing activity after you've worked with your horse, let's say while you're unsaddling it and brushing it down and returning it to its stall or its pasture. So use it as a reward in addition to as a therapeutic tool.